welcome to this deep dive. We're here to pull out the key insights from your reading, really get you up to speed quickly.
That's the plan.
Today, we're getting into Gary G. Schoeniger's book, The Entrepreneurial Mindset Advantage.
Right.
Our mission, really, is to look at the merits of the content. What's the actual value here?
We've gone through the excerpts you sent, and yeah, we're ready to unpack it.
So we'll look at the main questions Schoeniger asks, his arguments, and what you can actually use from this.
Exactly. Focusing on what makes it potentially worthwhile. The central ideas, the evidence, maybe those aha moments about entrepreneurship.
Okay, so let's start with the big picture. Why does the book say entrepreneurship even matters so much?
Well, Anthony Farr's foreword kind of kicks things off there.
Yeah. What does he say?
He makes this pretty strong point that startups, new companies, are disproportionately the ones driving disruptive innovation.
Okay, the game changers.
Right, and productivity gains, economic growth, and interestingly, almost all net new job creation.
Wow, okay. So it's not just a small slice of the economy then?
No, Farr frames it as this really powerful force, creating value, expanding opportunity, pushing things forward both economically and socially. It really sets the stage for why understanding this stuff is important.
That makes sense. And that leads right into the core debate Schoeniger tackles, doesn't it? Farr calls it a hotly debated question.
Yeah, the classic one. Are entrepreneurs born or are they made? Is it genetics or can you learn it?
Nature versus nurture, basically.
Exactly. And Farr suggests Schoeniger offers some remarkable analysis and insights on this. So presumably not just a simple yes or no.
He's looking for something deeper, maybe.
Seems like it. A more nuanced take on what actually makes an entrepreneur tick.
Okay, so who is this book actually for? According to Farr, anyway.
He casts a really wide net, says it's essential reading, obviously for entrepreneurs themselves, but also parents, educators.
Academics, policymakers.
Right, basically anyone interested in the topic at all.
Which suggests Schoeniger thinks this entrepreneurial mindset isn't just for, people starting businesses.
Yeah, it kind of implies the relevance is much broader. Like these ways of thinking could benefit lots of people, whatever their job is.
That lines up with what Schoeniger himself says about the book being a guide to, personal fulfillment and societal progress.
Right, through this mindset.
He argues that anyone from any background can cultivate this way of thinking for self-discovery, resilience, making a contribution.
So it's definitely positioned as more than just business strategy. It's almost like a philosophy for navigating life.
Yeah, the personal fulfillment angle is strong.
And the societal progress part, too. It suggests this mindset has wider benefits.
And it sounds like he's not afraid to push back against some established ideas about work, education, society.
The description mentions invaluable insights that challenge outdated notions, yeah. Seems like he's aiming for a fundamental rethink.
That's pretty ambitious.
It is. It signals that the book probably offers more than just standard business advice, maybe a more proactive way to approach, well, anything.
And the target audience reflects that too. High schoolers, college students, academics, but also just anyone curious about human potential.
Yeah, it's clearly not just aimed at seasoned CEOs.
Suggests the core message is probably quite accessible, focusing on that foundational mindset.
Right, the way you approach things rather than just complex tactics.
So getting into the core themes, the description mentions service, resilience, self-discovery. These are central. It frames the mindset not just as skills, but as a way of life for fulfillment and, bouncing back.
Which is an interesting combination, personal growth linked with being proactive, looking for opportunities.
And that service aspect is key, isn't it? Suggests entrepreneurship at its heart is about helping others, creating value for them.
I think so. And the book apparently aims to give readers tools for modern life, confidence, purpose.
It even paints this picture of a future based on creativity, autonomy, collaboration, bridging divides through empathy. That's a big vision.
It really is. Which makes you wonder, how does he back that up? Does he give concrete examples?
Well, yeah. The story of Ted Moore seems like a prime example to ground these ideas.
Okay, Ted Moore. What's his story?
Rough start. Really struggled in school. Reading issues, like third grade level in high school.
Wow.
But he was determined, wanted to avoid trouble, built this reputation as a really reliable, hard worker, even just doing unskilled labor.
So right away, that challenges the stereotype of the entrepreneur needing a fancy background. Determination, reliability, those seem key.
Absolutely. And the reliability thing is interesting. Even without much else, people trusted him. That's capital in itself, right?
Definitely. Trust is foundational.
So despite having almost no resources, he decides he wants to start a construction cleaning business. Sets up an office with his daughter wherever they could.
Huh, okay. Makeshift beginnings.
Totally. First job was just hauling shingles, maybe a few $100, but the focus was always on doing an amazing job, really exceptional service.
That fits the theme of creating value from day one, bootstrapping it, doing a lot with a little.
And it worked. Word got around, bigger contracts came in, and eventually he built a successful business, created jobs, a real from humble beginnings story.
That's a powerful illustration. Makes the whole idea feel more accessible, like Schoeniger intended. It's not just about the elite few.
It directly supports that idea of looking beyond the usual definitions.
Right. Recognizing the drive in everyday people.
And this leads into how the book tries to redefine entrepreneurship. It suggests studying these everyday entrepreneurs like Ted shows how small shifts can unlock bigger potential. Schoeniger even brings in his own story, calls himself an unlikely entrepreneur, blue-collar background, felt out of place in traditional schooling.
That adds a personal layer, doesn't it? You can see why he'd be looking for different paths.
Yeah, and he talks about being frustrated that nobody seemed to be studying the beliefs of these everyday folks, so he started interviewing them himself.
He realized they were kind of ignored, the garden variety entrepreneurs, while everyone focused on the big tech names.
Which is a key point of the book, right?
Yeah.
There are lessons to be learned from people building solid businesses under the radar.
Definitely. Looking beyond the celebrity cases.
He also mentions his time at the Cisco Entrepreneur Institute, noticing that the education often didn't match the reality for these everyday guys, like advising them as if they were already big corporations.
That's a really critical point. If the advice doesn't fit the context of the ambiguity, the lack of resources, it's not much help. Might even be harmful.
So the book argues this entrepreneurial mindset is vital, often overlooked, and it's different from just being a good manager.
Right.
Schoeniger wants us to see entrepreneurship as, well, a behavioral phenomenon, how people think and act, not just business structures.
That distinction feels important. Management is often about optimizing the known, while this mindset is about exploring the unknown, creating something new, shifting focus from the what to the how.
The book briefly touches on transformation theory, too, Dr. George Land's idea. Discovery, growth, obsolescence.
Yeah, the phases.
And needing different rules for each phase. It helps explain why an entrepreneurial mindset is key in that discovery phase versus a managerial one maybe later in growth.
That framework helps situate things. Entrepreneurial thinking is crucial when you're breaking ground or facing big changes.
Then it contrasts this entrepreneurial discovery with traditional learning. School often trains us to be useful within a system, right? To be a good employee.
Whereas entrepreneurship is presented as figuring out how to be useful to others through exchange, actively creating value.
It's a different way of engaging with the world, not just absorbing knowledge, but creating it.
Right.
And Schoeniger explores how these often inexperienced, unfunded people spot opportunities others miss.
What does he find?
Well, some counterintuitive stuff. It's not always about a revolutionary idea. Often very little formal planning or research up front.
Okay.
And having little money early on can actually be an advantage in discovery. Forces creativity, maybe?
That's interesting. Constraints fostering innovation.
Well, and he mentions the benefit of a beginner's mind, quoting Suzuki, being open because you don't have preconceived notions.
That really challenges standard business school thinking. A fresh perspective can be powerful.
And to illustrate that resilience and perspective shift, there's the story of Dawn Halfaker.
Oh, I think I've heard of her. Military background.
Yes, severely injured in Iraq, lost her arm, woke up in a coma. Initially, just despair.
That's incredibly tough.
But the turning point came in rehab. Seeing another soldier struggling made her shift focus from what she'd lost to what she still had.
Wow. That's resilience right there.
Right.
Reframing the situation. It ties right into those core themes.
And she didn't retreat. She started a consulting firm. Just a laptop, a business card, driven by wanting to help other soldiers. Her success came from necessity, from purpose. It really challenges that great man theory idea, suggesting situation and drive matter hugely.
It strongly supports the made, not born side of the argument, or at least shows how circumstances can trigger it.
The book also brings in psychology, talks about self-actualization, Goldstein, Rogers, Maslow, this innate human drive.
To reach our potential.
Yeah, and links it to 3 basic needs: autonomy, control over your life, competency, feeling effective, and relatedness, or purpose connection.
So entrepreneurship might satisfy these deep psychological needs.
That seems to be the argument. The desire for independence, mastery, contribution, they're powerful motivators. It gives a why beyond just money.
That makes sense. It provides a deeper framework.
And then Schoeniger looks at how these needs get met. Cognitive factors, motivational ones, situational ones, often subtly.
Wait, what sort of factors?
Well, cognitively, things like perceived self-efficacy,
Yeah.
your belief you can actually do it, and construal how you interpret situations, seeing opportunities where others see problems.
Okay, so how you think about things.
Right. And motivationally, that intrinsic drive. Situationally, things like your peers, your network, they influence your behavior.
Social influences.
Yeah. He even brings in Steve Jobs' a quote about realizing the world is made by people no smarter than you, and you can change it. That links to reflexivity, realizing systems aren't fixed. You can shape them.
So it's a mix of internal beliefs and external context shaping behavior, much more nuanced than just innate talent.
And mindset itself. The book defines it as this hidden mechanism determining how much capability you actually use.
Like the Warren Buffett engine analogy. 400 horsepower, but only using 100 because of the driver.
Exactly that. Your mindset can optimize potential or hinder it. An individual mindset connects to group culture.
That analogy really hits home. Potential isn't enough. It's the mindset that unlocks it.
Then the book really gets into the difference between the managerial lens and the entrepreneurial one.
Yeah.
Uses that David Foster Wallace fish parable.
The what the hell is water?
That's right.
Yeah, about assumptions being invisible when you're immersed in them.
Right. And it gives that historical context, the shift from pre-industrial self-employment to the Industrial Revolution, the rise of the employee.
Understanding that history helps see how roles like entrepreneur and employee emerged and became distinct, how the industrial model shaped perception.
And how, with big companies dominating, entrepreneurship started to seem less relevant
Yeah.
or niche.
Yeah.
So the book asks, how do these unfunded, unplanned entrepreneurs succeed? What are they doing if not following the business school playbook?
Those are the key questions driving the whole thing, challenging conventional wisdom.
The argument is that our view of entrepreneurship has been too narrow, framed by that managerial perspective of running existing things.
So Schoeniger wants to shift focus to the person, their mindset, their cognitive approach, even outside of starting a business.
Yeah, redefine it, make it broader, more accessible.
Makes sense.
The book then digs into the limits of those traditional managerial systems, prioritizing efficiency, routine, control.
Born from the Industrial Revolution, scientific management fail. Taylor?
Right. Taylor's one best way, taking the thinking out of the work. And the book connects this to worker alienation, even mentioning Adam Smith and Marx on that.
That critique sets the stage for why a different mindset, an entrepreneurial one, might be needed now. Alienation highlights the human cost of rigid systems.
And it links this to standardized education mirroring the factory model, potentially stifling autonomy, intrinsic motivation referencing Peter Gray.
That parallel is striking. Are schools accidentally hindering the skills needed today?
The book argues that in a knowledge economy, needing creativity, problem solving, we need more entrepreneurial thinking in the workforce. Those old managerial assumptions might be holding us back.
Because managerial systems are good for replication, predictability.
But not so good for exploration, experimentation, creative thinking. Gary Klein's work is mentioned there.
Right. And we often try to solve adaptive challenges, the messy ones with no clear answers, using technical skills suited for known problems.
Exactly. The managerial mindset can blind us to entrepreneurial solutions.
So we need to foster skills for self-direction, exploration, discovery, not just rely on old methods.
And the story of Elias Ruiz illustrates this. Science teacher wanted a better boat for bow fishing.
Okay, solving a personal problem.
Totally. Starts tinkering plastic bottles, plywood, problems with drag, tries expanding foam, ends up with a solid foam slab, just keeps iterating.
Learning by doing, responding to what happens, not a rigid plan.
And the business idea comes accidentally. A stranger sees it, asks where he bought it.
That's classic. Serendipity.
He tests it with a simple social media ad, and suddenly he has this side business. Shows how solving your own problem can find a market.
Great example of that iterative, need-driven approach.
Which leads to the distinction between effectual and causal reasoning.
Right. Causal is like traditional business planning. Goal first, then find the means. Managers in big companies often think like that.
Effectual is the opposite, kind of.
Yeah.
Starting with your means, who you are, what you know, who you know, and exploring possible outcomes. That's Sarasvathi's work.
More like exploring the available roads rather than planning the whole trip to a fixed destination. That flexibility is key early on.
Yeah, the book even uses my own gutter cleaning story. how sticking to the plan might have made me miss bigger opportunities.
Right, that anecdote really grounded the concept. Shows how rigid planning can be, like using the wrong tool for an adaptive challenge.
The core message seems to be permission to succeed comes from solving customer problems, not from investors or plans.
It's about learning by doing, experimenting, adapting, taking small, smart risks.
An empowering message. Focus on market engagement, not just external validation.
Definitely.
The book also discusses the fundamental attribution error in this context.
Meaning we focus too much on personality traits.
Yeah, saying someone succeeded because they were just driven and ignoring the situation, the learning process. The book argues the mindset often emerges from the behavior.
How?
Nascent entrepreneurs stumble into situations satisfying those needs. Autonomy, competence, purpose. This builds self-belief, expands their goals. So the mindset grows because they acted, not always before.
That's huge. You don't need the perfect mindset to start. You can develop it by starting.
Exactly. Like Steve Orlando's story. Mediocre student, caddy, wanted a business,
What happened?
tried office cleaning, didn't work, then stumbled into parking lot maintenance, succeeded with almost nothing. A broom, trash bags.
Shows that adaptability again, finding opportunity unexpectedly.
And this leads to the entrepreneurial mindset challenge. Take a little money, try to multiply it by being useful to others.
The goal isn't just profit, right? It's developing the attitudes, the skills.
Yeah, small wins build confidence. It's iterative.
A practical way to experiment, low risk.
And it's framed as a mini version of opportunity discovery. Step 1. Identify a real problem, like John Kendale just helping someone move furniture.
Starting simple, observing needs.
Step 2. Empathy. Understanding the real need. Like Brian Scudmore with 1-800-CASH-JUNK. It wasn't just hauling junk. It was the emotional relief.
Getting beyond the functional task to the underlying need.
Then step 3. Form a hypothesis. Develop a solution. Test it from the customer's view. Good ideas evolve through micro-experiments, adaptation.
And realizing your assumptions are wrong is progress, not failure.
Right. Flexibility, learning from feedback.
It's a very iterative model.
And finally, resilience is key. Challenging that negative self-talk. Seligman's work on optimism is mentioned.
Absolutely crucial for navigating the ups and downs.
The book then touches briefly on unlocking this potential in others, education, organizations.
How does it suggest doing that?
It's more facilitation than instruction. Building self-efficacy, using relatable stories, managing expectations for messy problems.
Fostering autonomy, like Carl Rogers suggested. Letting people choose projects, fail safely, learn by doing.
Yeah, using Socratic questions, connecting with local entrepreneurs. Promoting resilience through self-regulation, like the ABC model.
So a shift from top-down teaching to enabling discovery.
It also applies this to kids. Shares Rob Vigil's initial doubt, then surprise a kid's engagement. Robert's birdhouse business story.
Shows kids' innate capacity to create value.
And touches on Haight's work, adolescents needing more risk, more self-endorsed difficulties to build resilience, combat anxiety.
So encouraging exploration, aligning with interests, providing support, lots of incidental learning happens too.
Yeah, fostering the mindset early on.
The final part seemed to broaden out again. Education reform, leadership.
Right. Shifting education, integrating this mindset from middle school, role of community colleges, faculty training, then entrepreneurial leadership enabling adaptation by unlocking potential, empowering people closest to problems.
Connecting innovation, problem solving, and entrepreneurship, bringing ideas to life. Needing internal champions, mentors, systems thinking.
Basically, human-centered leadership and building entrepreneurial communities, the role of SBDCs, the importance of purpose, usefulness.
And ending with personal responsibility, looking inward at your own mindset.
Exactly, challenging your own assumptions. What's holding you back from being more useful, more engaged? The core message. We're capable of more, and these projects can unlock it.
It brings everything back to individual agency and growth.
So, bringing it all together, our deep dive into the entrepreneurial mindset advantage, well, it really makes a case that this way of thinking isn't just for a select few, it's developable.
Yeah, Schoeniger uses stories, analysis to redefine it. It's about behavior, serving others, resilience, self-discovery.
The real merit seems to be its accessible, encouraging tone. Challenging norms about work and school, offering practical insights, focus on creating value through action, learning.
It's a potentially powerful message, I think, for anyone wanting more agency, more purpose in a complex world.
And for you listening, we hope this gave you a good handle on the core ideas. Maybe spark some thoughts about your own potential. how you tackle things.
Which leaves us with that final thought to chew on.
Right.
Maybe the biggest advantage isn't a specific skill, but just continually questioning our assumptions. Recognizing the water we swim in. What assumptions, what water might you need to look at more closely in your own life?